I want to I want to welcome you and thank you so much. And I'm going to hand this over to our good friends Roshi, Barbara Wegmuller, Undine Bissmeier, and Pake Hall. And I don't know if Theo is here yet, but hopefully will be soon. Theo Barroquiero
Mhm.
from Portugal, and I'll keep an eye on the door to see if he's
I'm
on.
here, Jeff.
Oh, you are. Oh, there you are. I see you. Hi.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome. Yeah, thank you. Good, good, good. Thank you so much, and I'm glad your sound is working. Barbara said you were having trouble with sound. So let's go ahead and begin. And I'm gonna mute my microphone and pass the talking stick to Barbara to lead us off. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you very much for the invitation. So good day, good afternoon, good evening to all of you here. Thank you very much for the invitation and for your interest to hear about the legacy of Bernie Glassman in Europe. That's so wonderful that so many people are interested to listen to that. I would like to apologize in advance that the report will be incomplete because I only have an overview of a limited radius of Bernie's influence, of course. More often, I hear from people that they were very inspired by Bernie's books or that they experienced him as their teacher, also they had heard him only once or a few times. In my sharing, I will mention names of people who have studied with Bernie in Europe, who have been involved with him, and who thus do their work inspired by him in various ways. On the speaker podium today are Zen Peacemakers who offer and teach socially engaged Buddhism in 4 countries in Europe. So I met Bernie Roshi Glassman in 1999 at the Zen Peacemaker Bearing Witness Retreat in Auschwitz-Birkenau. The retreat had a very deep and very lasting effect on me, and I will come back to talk about this important retreat also later. A few months later, it was early 2000, Roland, my husband, and I participated in a Zen and clowning workshop at Unspunnen in Switzerland. Bernie and Moshe Yuhu gave us a playful experience of interdependence. Bernie's message was clear and strong that we should all become aware that each person is a precious pearl in Indra's web, and that we are should all become aware, living infinite, ever-changing web together. He emphasized that we should take the practice from the Zendo, from the meditation hall into our families, into our relationships, into the professional world, and into the streets, to be there with open hearts, bearing witness to the joys and sorrows in the world, and to do something, to act. I was inspired by the clarity and humanity of Bernie's teachings, his humor, his social commitment, and his confidence that he saw ways to bring good into the world and thus change society. Bernie challenged us to meditate, but also to be effective in action in the world. We would not have to wait to be enlightened to act, but our awake contact with the world and the people and beings would make us wake up. When Bernie invited my husband and me after the workshop to accompany him to the days of Buddhist-Christian dialogues at La Salle House in Switzerland, we both gladly accepted. Bernie gave Sister Pia Gigi and the Jesuit priest Niklaus Branchen in 1999 Inca the recognition of Zen masters. These two teachers were at that time the head teachers at the La Salle House. The exchange between Christians and Buddhists took place at La Salle House for more than 10 years. It was exciting to find out differences of the different concepts and to celebrate the commonality, the wisdom. The days were always well attended, and Roland and I accompanied Bernie to these meetings for over 8 years. At the same time, Bernie also invited us to work with a group of European Zen Peacemakers on the Zen Peacemaker Order in Europe. The group met regularly in Paris, in Montreuil, at the Zen Center of Roshi Catherine Genopages, the first Dharma successor of Roshi Genpo Merzel, a Dharma brother of Bernie. Geno and her Sangha members were wonderful, loving hosts to our group. The founding group included Roshi Geno Pages, Sensei Michel Dubois, Frank De Waele, and Amy Hollowell, both senior students of Geno Roshi at this time. Also Roberto Mande from Italy and Paul Schwert from Germany were part of the group. And Sensei Magosha Braunek and Andre Getzugen from Poland, and Roland and me from Switzerland. It was a very international group. We met so every 6 weeks, and Bernie came often to be with the group. Also, English is a foreign language for all except Amy, who is an American. It was a language in which we exchanged in this international composition. At this time, Bernie was writing his book on the Heart Sutra and the Sandokai, entitled The Infinite Circle. Bernie was sending us chapter by chapter of his writings via email to study. At his direction, we all did also a week-long retreat with Irini Rockwell, a teacher in Shambhala, on the 5 Buddha families, to become familiar with the mandala of the 5 wisdom energies. The work with the 5 Buddha families was a very important one for Bernie. We studied and practiced them in various ways throughout the years. The goal of the practice is to cultivate the 5 wisdoms and to become familiar with the states of mind and emotions through which we veil them. The more clearly we recognize them, the more we will be able to let the wisdom shine and thus serve the world. Bernie was pleased with the depth of sharing in our group. And so towards the end of the 2nd year, he thought it was time to work on a new vessel, the Zen of the Circle, instead of the order. His goal was no longer individual enlightenment, but group enlightenment. Now we were working on effective upayas, helpful means. We changed all our emails to Zen Circle addresses. This concept of small groups practicing together, studying together, sharing together, and inspiring each other was immediately clear to me. It was family-friendly, social, and no hierarchical. Different seats and roles are practiced by all. This empowers everyone in the group and strengthens cohesions. One of the most interesting insights we received in teachings during workshops from Bernie about vertical and horizontal power, which we need to be aware of and embody transparently to avoid abuse of power. Bernie traveled with our group to Rotterdam to visit Gerhard Endenberg, the founder of today's sociocracy. Gerhard welcomed us and gave us a lecture on the basic idea of his democratic method of organizing building. Bernie's vision at that time was to have a large international Zen Peacemaker Circle organization built on the foundations on sociocracy. In 2003, Bernie did for the group a wonderful ceremony where we became with him companions. We did a vow to support each other. From 2003, Bernie had to take care of the construction of the House of One People at home in Montague. He could not longer come to Europe so often. From now on, Roland and I traveled to Bernie as often as possible for teachings and meetings. But we felt happy that Bernie and he followed invitations to offer retreats in Switzerland still several times in the following years. Roland and I hosted a Zen Peacemaker Circle in our home for 7 years, from 2003, meditating together regularly over a long weekend, studying, practicing counsel, and using sociocratic voting method to choose books that we studied. Part of the commitment of the Zen Circle member was also to take on a social engagement. Thus, over the years, various projects came into being. We also practice with the 5 wisdom energies. After 7 years, Franziska Schneider took over the circle and continued to lead it for many years until it was recently passed on to committed circle members to Orsolina Bundi and Rose Krauthaler. The circle has now existed for 20 years, but with changing circle members. Franziska Schneider is now a Dharma successor of Roshi Yves Marco. She is a teacher at the Zen Center zum Grünen Ring in St. Gallen. The practice of Zen of the circle also requires a deep commitment, as does any serious practice. Bernie empowered Margie Gregory, Roland, and me as circle Dharma holders. And over the new few years, I offer trainings of the Zen of the circle and passed the empowerment on to a handful of circle Zen Dharma holders and 12 Zen circle stewards. Not all of them founded a Zen Peacemaker Circle, but they were inspired and received support in their practice. When I received Chukai from Bernie in the year 2005, and he accepted me as a student, I felt very, very fortunate. Bernie is my root teacher and heart teacher, and I vow to support his work and to continue to practice the path I was chosen and to serve the family of Zen Peacemakers in honoring the lineage of Zen Peacemakers throughout time and space. After studies with Bernie and Roshi Yves Marco, Roland and I received transmission from Roshi Yves as lay preceptors. Since then, 29 peacemakers have studied and received transmission of the Zen Peacemaker precepts. Again, today, a group of students are on their way to receive the precepts by studying them and practicing them. A helpful tool for perceiving the interdependence of all that is are plunges, such as street retreats. There were several street retreats in Paris, led by Roshi Michel Dubois and Roshi Geno Pages. Street retreats led by Sensei Koho and us in Nürnberg and Bremen, by Sensei Heinz-Jürgen Metzger in Hamburg and Cologne. Bernie authorized Cornelius von Collande as a Zen master, as a Roshi. Cornelius is a Zen teacher at Benediktushof in Würzburg in Germany. He had previously received empowerment as a teacher of Willigis Jäger. Cornelius founded the Rabensangha, a Zen Peacemaker group, and Sensei Undine Bissmeier was empowered as a teacher by both of us together. Bernie's thought, his influence on many ways was strong because he touched people in the heart through his brilliance, his charisma, and his humanity. Bernie did not like arrogance, and he preferred to avoid people who put on airs. He loved questions more than answers. He loved to be in exchange with people, and most of all, he loved to lead people into a state of not knowing and let them experience the reality of the moment. For this reason, he repeatedly invited people to the Auschwitz concentration camp for bearing witness retreats, which have been held annually for over 25 years now. When asked if it was possible to study with him, I always heard him say, "Please come and accompany our group to the Bearing Witness retreat in Auschwitz." I have attended this retreat every year for more than 20 years, and then I will continue to do so. Like Bernie, I would like to invite you to join us also this November with the Zen Peacemaker to go to this retreat. Whenever we do something together, we keep the focus on the 3 tenets of the Zen Peacemakers. These are not knowing, we are not holding on to our concepts about ourselves and the universe. Bearing witness, we are fully present in the wake in this unique moment, and we act from it with compassion and wisdom. This is a practice in every moment of our lives and our alignment in all that we do. Bernie also taught these 3 tenets in a workshop with peacemakers and social activists in Turin, Italy, and in his work with peace groups and peace activists in Israel and Palestine. Bernie was a great social activist who did great things for many people. But his main goal was to let us all know that we are not separate from all what is, that we experience the interconnectedness as a one body and act from it. In Palestine, 4 of us, Roshi Eve, Teju, Laura, and I worked for over a week with young peace activists in Bethlehem in the West Bank, using these 3 tenets and our peacemaker skills. I thank these wonderful women for their inspiration and friendship and their tireless peace work. Even outside Europe, where my husband Roland and I traveled with Eve and Bernie in Japan, in India, in Sri Lanka, on the Bahamas, these tenets were the orientation of all teachings. Of course, also at the Bearing Witness retreats in Rwanda and South Dakota, and in the retreats with the theme of racism and slavery, they are always the spirit and basic of our gatherings. My first Dharma successor, Sensei Koho de la Mora, Mello, is co-director of CPO. He teaches at the Zen Center in Wettingen in Switzerland, but also works tirelessly in Brazil and in worldwide networks, supporting Zen Peacemaker practice, community building, and social engagement. Bernie's vision is alive. Mikko with his Zen Peacemaker Sangha in Finland, Gabriele Blankertz, one of the very early Zen Peacemakers who is a Circle Dharma holder in Berlin, Lily Mösler, who is also a member of the CPI board, and her father Tom, Sabine Barlewski and Kathleen Batke, who is very involved in Ökodharma work, Jörg and Christiane Bretz in Frankfurt. They all live in Germany. Marge Opliger and Jürgen Lemke in Switzerland, and our dear Sangha friends Adriano Tineo and Rosa Castilla, who are now living in Malaga in Spain. All these peacemakers planted seeds of peacemaking in their countries, in their work, in their lives. I know there are many peacemakers and Zen practitioners who are inspired by Bernie and are doing wonderful work. Of course, today I have only referred to Bernie's impact in Europe because that is a topic. But I would like to express my gratitude to the Zen Peacemaker family in the US, from whom I have learned so much and with whom I feel very connected. I feel deeply grateful for their practice, their work, and their support. I could go on for a very, very long time about how great Bernie's influence has been on many people committed to Zen practice and social engagement, and how grateful I am to him for that. I thank my teacher with all my love and with deep respect for his teachings, for being with us, for every moment we spent together. But now I would like to give my dear Zen Peacemaker friends from Sweden, Germany, and Portugal the opportunity to make our network in Europe known to you from their point of view, which was created by Bernie's coming to Europe. Thank you so much for listening to me. So maybe Pake. Hi, it's good to see you.
Thank you, Barbara. So nice to hear you. It's so nice to hear about the legacy from Bernie growing in Europe for so many years. Well, I might not be as clear and have such a red line running through my talk as Barbara had, but first I would like to say, of course, it's going to be from a lot from my personal point. I can't cover everything in Sweden, even if it's a very the Zen Peacemaker hasn't been around in Sweden for a long time. But actually, long before I got involved in the Peacemakers, there has been Swedes going to the Auschwitz-Birkenau retreat, and I think also feel as part of the Peacemakers. But they haven't been so interested in building a Sangha in the Peacemaker tradition, maybe, as I have. So maybe that's why I'm invited to say something here today. So for me, I could say that also Barbara said something in her speech about that some people feel that like Bernie is their teacher, even if they only met him once already. And I feel very much as Barbara's student, but also in some small way as a student of Bernie. I didn't meet him many times, or a couple of times in Auschwitz. And of course I read his book, but he had a very strong influence on me way before I went to Auschwitz, also through the books. And actually he when I read Bernie's books and also other socially engaged Buddhist teachers, there was something that really hit a nerve in me. I came to Zen practice in 1991, but I was really afraid of the organization of religion. So I kept myself on a long distance from any traditions and any organization that could do strange stuff like sitting together and looking into a wall or going somewhere together. And my other foot was in some kind of activist environment for environmental activism and different politics and so on. And then when I dared to approach a Zen tradition in the early 2000s, I was really that felt really as home, but there was something that was missing, and that was this that they really encourage us not to get involved, I'd say, in society, to just do your sitting, just go to the sessions, that's all you have to do, and that's where the liberation is. And I felt something missing. And when I came upon the teachings of people like Bernie and some others, it really hit a nerve in me. And before through the books of Bernie, you could say, through Bearing Witness and Infinite Circle as well, and or Instructions to the Cook, I got really I wanted to bring some of that into this other Zen tradition. And we start to do some things like meditations in the nature to evoke some kind of feeling one with nature and being inspired to do stuff, to be one with nature, and then you do stuff for the environment. And that was okay in the other tradition as well, in the more orthodox tradition. But then we also get, there are some other Zen people from the American Zen Peacemaker family that's not here today. And in 2000, and I think it was 9, I came in contact with Fleet Moore as well, who's a Zen Peacemaker, and who many of you have met in Auschwitz, for instance. And he was doing a lot of work with his prison Dharma network, and I got involved in that. And we also brought that into the Swedish Sangha here. But then I couldn't keep myself away from doing something more with the Zen Peacemakers. So I went to Auschwitz in 2013 and met Barbara and Roland and Cornelius and several others, and Bernie, of course, and Eve. And that made such a strong impact on me on how I wanted to continue to practice, and that I wanted to bring this kind of practice, to make it more alive in Sweden, to meet up with other people and to build some kind of network in Sweden, to do it on my, let's say, on my local ground, not just out in Europe, but also at home. And then I have only been to Auschwitz 3 times, 2013, 15, and 17. But after this first visit to Auschwitz, I thought, well, we must be able to use the ideas from the Auschwitz retreat and from the 3 tenets of the Zen Peacemakers and direct it to where the cries are heard in the Swedish society today. And then it was in 2015 when when the war was going on in Syria so much, and all the refugees were flooding the Mediterranean, and a lot of people were coming to Sweden. And it was so strange to sit at home in a country that has been at least known for its neutrality and for being at peace for 200 years. And in some way, feeling that we are at peace. And then at the same time, the war is so present, even in this peaceful country, through all the refugees, through all the selling of weapons to countries at war, and through all the veterans of the UN soldiers in Sweden that come home with PTSD and so on. So I thought we could use the influence or the inspiration from the Zen Peacemakers and from the Auschwitz retreat or from the Zen street retreats and actually go somewhere and listen to people and to bear witness to how war is present even in a country at peace. So we did that for 1 year. It was a really deep experience. We walked for 17 days from a port in Sweden for 17 days, and we met up with people along the way, with refugees, veterans of war, with people in the arms industry, and with politicians, and with people who were helping refugees and so on. And it was a really deep experience. So then we started to, I tried to organize that for several more years. And actually, to my great happiness, Mikko all of a sudden showed up, but unfortunately I couldn't be there that year. So Mikko showed up and I was so happy, and another Zen friend from Finland, and I couldn't be there, but they did their thing the next year and 2 years more after that. So we had 4 of these long pilgrim bearing witness walks, say. But then in 2018, after my last bearing witness retreat in Auschwitz, I decided to leave the other tradition I was in and to actually plunge into the Zen Peacemaker fully, and to actually start up a small, let's say, peacemaker-orientated Sangha in Sweden. Maybe influenced by Mikko, I'm not sure. Maybe it was his his karma that drove me to that. But that is where we are now. So we are building this very small Sangha in Sweden, and also it's interesting now because we're doing it. I've only before I've been trying to build a Sangha where there already is a tradition in a country, and now and maybe for some of you this might be old news, but to me it's new. And to try to build a Sangha, a Zen Sangha in a country where you have no one else to lean to, it's very different. and so the structure is much more flexible, and you try to find your way, so to speak. And we have tried for the first 5 years of that, we have tried to do it also to make it as flat as possible in the hierarchy, and also not being driven to gather a lot of money to have a fancy Zen temple in the city, but to be able to put our energy to work in other ways. And that's a very interesting and different way to try to build a Sangha as well. I think often we have this very a formal place where all the people can gather and something comes out of that that's really good. But try to do it in another way without the formal temple to go to gather at, and to have the city ground as your gathering place, or the woods as your gathering place, or the sea, or wherever we might meet because there is an issue there, or there is a place where we can bear witness to the beauty of the world or to the sorrow of the world. That's a really different thing, and it's a challenge as well that I look forward to go on with. And here in Sweden also, I became a lay preceptor with Barbara, and now I've forgotten when it was. I think it was last year.
Written on your rakuzu.
Yeah, but not this one, the other one. So I think it was last year. So I have a group now that are studying the Zen Peacemaker precepts with me, and that also feels to really to plant the peacemaker seeds in Sweden in a very different way than before, and to actually carry on the Bernie's legacy, of course, and also Barbara's, and all the rest of you that's have done all this work for so many years. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. We are 10 people in a group now studying the precepts, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to carry that on. So where we are going in the future in Sweden, I don't know, and maybe there will come some part of that where we can talk about that. But for me, of course, there is I want to build a Sangha in Sweden where people can come and take part of the peacemaker practices and to put that out into the world. But I also feel it's so easy to get stuck in your own country. And I hope that the peacemaker family in Europe and in the US, or the rest of the world, of course, but particularly maybe in Europe, because we're close to each other and we can actually travel easily by train or car to each other. I really hope that the network in Europe continues to grow and grow stronger, so we can draw inspiration from each other and to really put the ideas and the practices from the Zen Peacemakers into action in the world. And I think we need each other to do that. It's difficult to do it one by one. We need to do it as one together. So thank you for your time. Thank you. And now I leave the word to Undine, I think.
Thank you, Parker. Thank you. It was very interesting and inspiring to hear from your personal way and from the situation in Sweden. Thank you very much. So, hello everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm Undine. I come from Germany, and I live in Karlsruhe. This is in the south of Germany, next to the Black Forest. I'm a Zen teacher in the lineage of Zen Peacemaker. And in this function, I support my teacher Cornelius von Kullande in the Rabensanga. We heard of Rabensanga before. Barbara mentioned it. And Barbara is my second teacher. And there's a good connection between Spiegelsanga in Bern and Rabensanga in Würzburg in Germany. It's interesting and some kind of funny that on the days 12 years ago, when I asked Cornelius to become my teacher, I was not amused when he explained that he had now met this man, Bernie Glassman, and the Zen Peacemakers, and he wanted to bring the ideas and contents of this lineage to his students. I wanted to learn the real Zen, what I thought it was real Zen. I meant breathing, learning to breathe, working with Mu, Shikantaza, and working with Koan. Yeah? I wanted to sit on my cushion and become quiet. I wanted the teacher to understand that strange things that were happening in my head while I was sitting in silence. I wanted to talk about me and my own enlightenment. And now Cornelius was telling me about socially engaged Zen and about not knowing. Yeah, I wanted to know and not know. Yeah, and then this crazy idea of going to Auschwitz and sit there. But I had chosen to accept him as an authority and trusted him. So I had to get involved in this Zen Peacemaker thing. And fortunately, I did. It was really good to do that. Cornelius invited Barbara to a Sangha meeting, and we did a day of reflection on the precept using all the ingredients of my life. I learned to counsel and was inspired. One was allowed to speak there in Zen, and also hear the other voices and opinions. Zen was suddenly no longer grey and silent, but it was also colorful and diverse. And that what irritated me most about Bernie's ideas at the beginning to go to Auschwitz became totally important for me over the years. In 2014, I went to the Auschwitz retreat for the first time. It was a great experience. When I came back to Germany from the first retreat, I wanted to somehow translate the deep experiences from the retreat into action. A project that my first Auschwitz retreat inspired me were the stumbling stones. Those stumbling stones, in German Stolpersteine, are cubes bearing a brass plate or metal plate in the size of a cobblestone, which has been set into the floor of the sidewalks. The stones are laid in front of buildings where people were deported to concentration camps during the Nazi dictatorship. The name, date of birth, and death, as well as the location of their death, all are inscribed on the stone. They remind us of the victims and their fates. I thought I'd always taken note of the stones. However, that seemed not to be the case. I constantly discovered new stones in my city when I came back from Auschwitz. In Auschwitz, people were murdered and burned without dignity or respect. There were no funerals, no tombstones. There exists no possibilities to visit graves or leave small stones on the tombstones, as it is the Jewish tradition. Only nameless ash remained. A possibility to honor the victims is caretaking for the stumbling stones. The problem with the stones, however, is that the metal turns dark over the time due to the environmental influences and shines no longer. Therefore, they have to be cleaned with metal polish. Since many years, we've regularly polished stumbling stones during our Sangha meeting. The Sangha members come from all over Germany and also polish stones at home in their towns. Also with other groups, we have already carried out several cleaning actions in various German cities. We also presented the biographies of the people. In this way, we try to give the victims back some of their dignity. In Würzburg, we also took over the sponsorship of a stone that was laid thanks to our donation. The thing with the stumbling stones could also be an opportunity to extend the German project into Europe, because we have stumbling stones all over Europe. They are not only in Germany. They are in many European countries. I read them to you. We have stumbling stones in Austria, Belgium, Croatia, the Czech Republic, Finland, France, Greece, Italy, Hungary, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Moldova, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Romania, Russia, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Switzerland, and Ukraine. So it's up to you. You can do it in your country. You can do it all over Europe. Polishing stones in these times can also be seen as a political action. Recently, there have been reports of stones being splashed with liquids by unknown persons, and these liquids destroy the surface of the stones, so you can't read the names anymore. These unknown persons don't want to be remembered of what happened in my country 8 years before, or they do not think that is true. They have another opinion. The practice of bearing witness in concentration camps is also currently on my mind. This cruel period of German history 80 years ago has left its signs and suffering on subsequent generations of the perpetrator nation. Suffering for which many are ashamed, because we as children and grandchildren of those responsible think that we are not allowed to give expression to our own feelings and suffering. Some Germans still do not have the courage for a retreat of several days in a concentration camp, and some don't want to fly to Poland because they don't want to fly anymore. So I'm actually preparing a single day of reflection in Dachau, a former concentration camp in the south of Bavaria. It's only 10 minutes away from Munich's main train station. It was the idea of Ute, and I think she's here. There's no picture, but I see her. Thank you, Ute. It was her idea. She asked me to do that. Thank you, Ute. As Zen Peacemakers, we walk our Bodhisattva path as socially engaged persons. We do not retreat on our cushion, we stay in the world. We responsibly face the challenges that everyday life offers us. And there's a lot to face, as we all know. Then there are even bigger challenges, like the climate crisis or the wars, for which we can take responsibility. And that's far more difficult because these issues are broader. Sometimes we think that we can get much less concretely into action, but we can, and we have to try to do it. Is the Holocaust a challenge for us Germans to take responsibility for? Far in time, not now. There's the notion of a culture of remembrance. Could it be that cultivating memory is some kind of attachment? Doesn't Zen teach us all the time to let things go? Doesn't that mean forgetting the past and letting go? So many questions. We bear witness to the suffering of the victims, no matter what nation, race, or class we belong to. And in this common witnessing, we feel ourselves as the one body, that we are all together. And in this one body, any question disappears. We just do what we have to do. It's not only suffering that I bear witness. As a German, I also bear witness a feeling of guilt. There seems to be something in my cells that resonates with this time and the responsibility we had as Germans. Certainly not everyone feels responsible, but I feel that way. When I visited Dachau at the end of May, I was surprised how many foreign languages I heard, hardly any German, most of all Spanish, then English, also Hebrew, and many other European languages. As a German, I seem to be in the minority there. I often hear the Germans did this and the Germans did that, and that hits me. I would like to hide. The concentration camp seems to be an attraction for tourists. Germans seem to be less interested in it. That's my individual perception on this day. I know several young Germans who don't want to hear anything more about the Nazi period. They say one must forget now. Those times are over. After all, they do not feel any connection with it today. And the understanding in spiritual circles in my country that we Zen Peacemakers meditate and practice in a former concentration camp is often not there either. After all, many meditators are concerned with their own spiritual development and enlightenment, like me years ago when I started to meditate. What is the point of facing the difficult past, especially since it is unpleasant? Yes, it is unpleasant. Feeling the responsibility for what happened, not denying what happened, and allowing the pain is difficult and painful. At the same time, we can experience it as healing when we bear witness to it. This is how I can tell it from my own experience. Healing for the other people and healing for me. Healing and transforming, so that we can also be strengthened for the great current challenges of our time, such as climate crisis and war. It can make us more prepared and able to engage and act in these paths. Numberless beings, I vow to serve them. This is the first great vow we have in Zen. It's a huge responsibility that we take on. For me, dealing with the past provides an important opportunity to take responsibility, to care for the stumbling stones, or to face and share suffering in concentration camps. It is for this reason I feel very honored that this year I will be a member of the Spirituality team in Auschwitz for the first time. I've talked a lot about retreats in concentration camps and stumbling stones. Witnessing the Holocaust is, of course, not the only thing that interests me as a Zen peacemaker. But I'm sure you will understand that as a German, this naturally affects me especially and touches my heart. Dear Zen Peacemakers, we are a worldwide community to achieve something for peace, to make sure that this world becomes a more peaceful place, and the world needs our engagement. For that, let's talk about war. War is cruel. I think it is important to be a witness to war in order to better serve peace. We should also not close our eyes to the violence of war. With our Sangha, we will be a witness to the war on a former battlefield near Würzburg in July. Now there's a peaceful meadow, but 160 years ago, there was a battle in a war between Prussia and Bavaria, Preußen and Bayern. At that time, the two groups were enemies. Today, both belong to Germany. Where we will sit, meditate, and counsel, trenches are still visible. Trenches in the ground from which the soldiers can hide and shoot at the enemies, as they are currently again built in the Ukraine by the Russians. I look forward to be a witness on this day, to what nature, history, and the present will do to our hearts. After more than a year, we have almost got used to the war in Ukraine, although it is raging here in Europe. But it shouldn't be like that. In addition to all the suffering and chaos it is bringing upon the people, it is also doing massive damage to the environment. And environmental and climate protection is another issue that is very important to me. Military equipment emits greenhouse gases at a high rate. The residues of ammunition, landmines, or other explosive remains of war can contaminate soil and groundwater with metals and toxins, often for decades. Russia's war has caused as many climate-damaging emissions in the first year as a country the size of Belgium in the same period. 120 million tons of CO2 emissions equivalent. Due to trench digging and forest fires, radioactivity has leaked in the Chernobyl area, contaminating many soldiers. Environmental damage doesn't necessarily remain limited in time and space. They can spread globally and bring lasting consequences. Not only people in the war zone are affected, but also beyond, even in the time after the war. The European Union, the UK, and the United States of America set themselves the goal of becoming climate neutral by 2050. However, the Paris Climate Agreement excludes the military, so they can go on making war. We must work to preserve or restore peace at all levels. We must do everything we can to save and protect the climate. But what do you feel when you hear these facts of environmental damage from the Ukraine war? When you bear witness to what is happening in the world right now? I often feel despair and helplessness. What helps me then is my Eco-Dharma online group, the Eco-Drops. We meet regularly to exchange ideas using Zoom. We started over 1 year ago by studying and discussing David Lloyd's Eco-Dharma. Then followed the discussion of Joanna Macy's Active Hope. A participant had taken the Work That Reconnects workshop in the States and motivated us to do the exercises. That was very inspiring. Having last looked at sustainable consumption, our topic now is practical visions. Which of our vision can we practically implement as individuals and as a group? The group means support and encouragement to us. We learn from each other and become more mindful and practice sustainability. Dealing with the climate crisis in the group also motivated me to take following action. While walking through the pedestrian zone in Karlsruhe last winter, I noticed that quite a few store doors were open when the outside temperatures were freezing. These stores let warm air flow inside. Many of us tried to save energy and heat less in winter. Companies that claim to be sustainable are throwing energy out of the door. Last winter, schools were heated less to save energies in Germany. Kids were cold, and at the same time, stores are heating up the downtown area. On a very cold morning at the end of December last year, I made a survey in downtown Karlsruhe in stores with the doors open. After a freezing night, it had warmed up a bit till 10 o'clock in the morning. The temperature had climbed to -4 degrees, that's about 39 Fahrenheit. Actually unbelievable that some stores had the doors open. I always went into the stores with the same question. Good morning, I just have a short question. Why is your door open? It's very cold outside. I received a wide variety of answers. One was, otherwise customers won't know the store is open, or the door is broken, or otherwise the mothers with the baby buggies won't get in, or it's an escape route, the door has to be open all the time. I wrote a letter to the editor to our city's daily newspaper reporting on my research. Wrote that I don't think it's okay that heat and energy are being thrown out of the door. 2 days later, an editor of the newspaper called me and asked whether he could make an article from the inquiry. Of course he could. He interviewed me some more, and the next day a report about the problem appeared on the first page of the local section of the newspaper. With very little effort, I was able to draw attention to that problem and perhaps motivate other people to think about it or to ask questions. Of course, I have to stay on the subject. I don't have to wait until winter. The summers in Germany are now very hot due to the climate crisis. And the air conditioners in the stores are set to full cooling again. With the doors open, heat is coming in. Again, time to go to the stores and ask. And finally, to do a bigger action like a demonstration in front of the store door, maybe with peaceful sitting on the street. And maybe the issue is also something for the people who listening to me, the people in Germany or otherwhere in Europe or the States, to do the same if you're interested. I mean, sometimes it doesn't take much to take action. In order not to lose courage and to keep our strength, I find it very important that we also practice Zen or other forms of meditation regularly. Also to take longer time outs in sessions. It is very helpful to turn to the three tenets again and again. Together with Cornelius, I do Zen Peacemaker retreat and at Benediktushof twice a year. Benediktushof is the largest center for mindfulness and meditation in Europe. And in the Zen Peacemaker retreat, we practice the three tenets intensively. And please don't forget your lightness and humor in all the heaviness of the topics and tasks the world offers us. This was always very important to Bernie. Barbara mentioned it before. Bernie took clown lessons with Moshe Cohen for this reason. Clowns are professionals and not knowing, the first tenet of the Zen Peacemakers. In the meantime, I was also able to learn from Moshe as participant in one of his workshops. And meanwhile, I also give online courses in Zen and clowning together with him. Seriousness and humor, suffering and joy, witnessing that and serving life and peace through our behavior and actions. That's what it's all about. And I'm glad that I found a community and a way to practice this with the Zen Peacemakers. I'm very happy that we are doing this event and that we can hear from different areas of Europe what's going on, and to see that Bernie's legacy lives on in Europe as well. Thank you, Bernie Glassman, for the inspiration, and thank you for listening. And now I give it to Theo.
Thank you. You know, I really love the coincidence of life. I was not looking at the watch that is right on my side when I asked you to just sit, and when you just be quiet, I heard outside the bells of the church, you know, just announcing that the time is now, and the time is now for us to practice. And for me, the Zen Peacemakers, it's all about spiritual friendship. It was how it started. My first Zen teacher, Alcio Braz from Rio de Janeiro, he showed me a record from Barbara and Holland when they visit the favela, the temple, the Zendo in Rio de Janeiro. And so I first met Barbara, actually, just her voice, and something in the sharing just touched my heart. And then Sabine was practicing with Barbara for 1 year, retreating in Switzerland. And I also have the chance to listen of recorded sharing of Sabine talking about the experience of sewing the Zen Peacemakers Rakusu. And it was so special for me because Sabine was sharing that the fabrics were from people that meant something to her heart. And so now I feel how much this connects with this marvelous idea that Bernie just let us, the interconnectedness of life. And I'm joining you from the river bank of Tagus. It's the main river in Portugal. I'm really close to the mouth of the river. Actually, I live at the mouth of the river. And this year, Barbara, at the Jukai session, she gave me the name of Ekai. Ekai is the meaning of Ekai. It's the ocean of wisdom. And so when I try to feel the heart of the Zen Peacemakers, I feel like an ocean, a huge ocean, who knows, without boundaries, and the interconnectedness of the waves that we all are. It's so meaningful for me and so inspiring. And so this spiritual friendship just inspired myself to start to practice not alone in my home, but try to go somewhere. Because, as I said, my first teacher is from Brazil. It's not on this side of the Atlantic, so the other shore of the ocean. And so I was a kind of homeless practitioner, because I didn't connect with the sanghas here from the depth of my heart. And so I heard now the sharings of the Auschwitz retreat, and for me, the most inspiring thing that Bernie, as a practitioner, gave me was the street retreat, because I feel that our little sangha here in Lisbon is a street sangha, because we don't have a house to practice, so we are very humbly received in the house of a friend of us that loves to practice with us, but doesn't connect with the Zen Peacemakers. So it's very beautiful how she opens the door for our circles. And we try to meet every week for the circle, because somehow we feel that the circle is the natural expression of our Sangha. Try to speak from the heart and listen from the heart. Deep listening what we are sharing in the moment. And so I feel that this is the seed that Bernie, through Barbara, planted on us here in Lisbon and here in our little Sangha. And I also love this, this red nose, because this tendency to have fun, just have fun and awake together. So stay together, have fun, bearing witness to the joys and sorrows of the world, but live together, awake together. And I never met Bernie in person, but I met Bernie through the words and the sharings of Barbara. And as I was saying, this spiritual friendship, the first time I went to Barbara's house, we were doing something in the kitchen, and she was preparing the meals probably. And I asked her how it was to be with Bernie. And it was the sharing from the heart of Barbara that touched my heart and that keeps me connected with the Zen Peacemakers. So as I share with you, the circle is our main practice here in our Sangha. And we try to sit also in the contemplation, in a Dharma contemplation way, inspired by the circle. And we contemplate for now the hidden lamp. And we also practice as much as we can outside, especially in spring. When spring comes, we go to the botanical garden. And a few weeks ago, it was raining a lot, so we couldn't sit outside under the trees, otherwise we'll be all wet and probably will start to shake with the cold. So we had to sit in the stairways of the museum. And we never, at least we tried, never force nothing to appear or to manifest. We let the spontaneity of life and practice just to arise. And so we just sit, three of us, just sat there in the stairways. And there was a person on our right side that was preparing the bed. He was homeless and he was preparing the bed to stay for the night. And it was so wonderful because without doing nothing, just being there, we had this opportunity to do a street retreat for a Zazen time, because when we finished our period of sitting, we just looked to each other, including the homeless person, and we smiled to each other. So we start three, at least we thought that we were three in the Sangha, but the Sangha was much broader than that. It was everything that was around us that was practicing always with us. And so these smiles, remember the smile of Bernie and the fun that Bernie has, and also the warmth that I felt from Barbara's heart every time she's sharing her stories with Bernie. So I'd like to thank life for this moment to be here with you in this circle. And I hope that we could bear witness to the joys and sorrows of life. I hope also that we could have as much fun as we can. And I hope from the depths of my heart that we could awake together. Thank you. I don't know if I now should pass the talking piece to someone. Should I?
Theo, I can take it back and have us transition a little bit. Barbara, thank you so much. Pake, Undine, Theo, thank you all for sharing and for preparing so well. I learned a lot listening to your stories. Thank you. Everyone, we have a little more time if we would like to spend some time together, and we have such a great group of people here today. Let's open up to questions, and I can't see everybody because there are too many for one screen. So if under in your Zoom screen where it says reactions, you can raise your electronic hand. That'll be a good way to do that. So if anybody has a comment or a question, and if we can keep them somewhat lean, because there are quite a few of us, and I expect maybe more than a few people will have something to share. So please raise your hand if you'd like to speak, and I'll call on you. Miko, hi, Miko.
Hello. I just wanted to use the opportunity to give my thanks to Pake, who's been a great inspiration to me and us here in Finland. And it was thanks to Pake that I eventually got in contact with the Peacemakers through one of the peace walks that they organized in Sweden. And it was just by a chance. I had read Bernie's books, and Bernie had just had the stroke in 2016, and I thought that my chance of getting in touch with the Peacemakers had already gone. And I volunteered for a documentary film that was done by a friend of mine, Rabbe Sandström, a fellow Zen practitioner from here in Helsinki. And he was making a documentary film on the Peace Walk, and I volunteered as a sound engineer, sound man for the walk, and I had no idea where I was going to. And suddenly I was surrounded by Swedish peacemakers, and it really made a huge impact on me. And after that, I've been in contact with the peacemakers, and I got in contact with my current teacher, Frank de Valle-Roche from Belgium, only a few weeks after the Peace Walk. And I just wanted to use this opportunity to give my thanks to Pake. Thank you.
Thanks, Miko. And thank you for staying up so late.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to share? Or ask a question, or Sabine, I see your actual hand. Fortunately, yes. You're on my page 1, so I can see you.
Okay, thank you. I want only to say that I'm very happy to be here with all of you, and I will take this opportunity to tell a little what the way I am living this peacemaker action, very individual, because I had the privilege to make a sabbatical year with Barbara and Roland in Switzerland, and I always was thinking, how can I thank the universe for this opportunity and all I experienced and learned not as a student, not as a teacher, but as a person, in a living person. And I like very much to write, and this happened. I let it happen. Now is coming a book where I can share all my this practice from the point of view of daily life, and that's what I want to say. This feeling of you don't have to be a teacher, you don't have to be a student, a formal to have a formal activity, and I am always looking for this bridge between the practice and life, without having to be a teacher or a student. And that's the way I found. I hope this book will come in Portuguese, where I began my practice 2010, I think, with Alcio Braz too. And I'm so happy to see Pake, my brother of Tukai, Undine, to see Theo and you all here, and to be part and to feel being part of this group. And you don't need a big mission. You need to be there all the moment in your life, and then the opportunities will arise alone, and you will see what you have to do. And I'm very emotional now to be here with you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you so much. Someone else have a comment or a question? Something to add to the history, or? Hi, Roland. Thank you. There you go.
Yeah. So I'm also so happy to see you all, and to listen to Barbara, and to all the souvenirs we have, the rememberings, and also to say that Bernie's way of teaching and being and staying with us was just friendship. And for me, the circle and also the council is so important. And we sit in a circle, and we sit in silence in the circle, and we share from the heart. And that's for me so precious, that there is for me a Zen technique to share in the circle. That is really a great gift. And I'm so happy that we can even now practice it online. So I hesitated at the beginning. Years ago, I didn't want to share online, but now we can meet. Even now we can meet how we can meet here, and it's so precious for me. It has become precious that we don't have to travel, but of course it's nice to travel and to meet in person. But still, I can say it's better than not meeting. It's much better, and it's so precious to share, and it's possible to share from the heart. And what I want to mention is that I did a film with Bernie about my 50 years of Zen. And that gave me the possibility, the opportunity also to hear what he said about his 10 and 20, 30 years of Zen. And his saying about this time was the 21st years were so rough. And I mean, he was really a well-trained Japanese teacher. And he said it was too rough. If I would change something about my first 20 years, is the roughness, just the roughness, not the sitting and not the meeting, but the roughness. And that's what I experienced with him, is that in the end, we really could talk about love. And when I was invited by Bernie in the Circle of Paris, when we were invited, Barbara and me, we were invited as Sufis. And this place of the heart of love always remained during my whole praxis with Bernie. And that means he really could leave the people and let the people and accept the people how they were. And the not knowing, the bearing witness, and the loving action is what brought me and always hold me here in this praxis of Zen with the peacemakers. So that's what I really appreciate about the being with you and the friendship I have all over the world. I feel that I have all over the world. The world is full of friends. So I thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you. We have just a few more minutes if someone else would like to share. Sabine, do you have your hand up again?
Yes, I want to make a question because I'm doing the newsletter of Zen Peacemakers Switzerland, which is the headquarter of Europe, I think, through Barbara. So I want to invite each one of you to tell some story, to share some story which some experience, something we can share together in the newsletter. So send it to me in English, no problem. Each language, we will translate it to German because the newsletter is in German. So we can share. And I think this sharing, this written sharing, you reach so many people, and when they read, they are inspiring, and we can write it with inspiration and think about how you tell the story, and so reach each of us in Europe. So please tell your stories, your experience, and send it to me. Okay, thank you.
Sabine, if you would like to put, I'm sure everyone has your email address already, but in case not, would you like to put your email address in the chat, and then friends can copy from the chat. While she's doing that, does anyone else have maybe we have time for one more comment? Uta has to leave. Cornelius apologized. He had to leave for meditation, and Coho earlier did as well. So, okay. Well, maybe Barbara, would you like to say a few words just to close for us today?
Yes, I love to do that. And I think Nico just wrote that the northern part of Europe is under Frank de Waal, and they also have news. And it was Bernie who told us both to take a part of Europe. So Frank's part is the northern part. Even some people from the northern part also studied with me, and the southern part he offered to me just to support people. I mean, it's really our role is to serve people and really be there for their wish for connection, and this was the main part, I think, that we share and that we have in our vision, that we want to be connected, that we want to live this community and support each other. So I wish you all the best. I thank you so much for all your practice, all your work, for being here. And yeah, let's be connected and let's serve each other. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeff, for your invitation, and thank you all. Blessings to you.